I'm Zoe A2 and this is my A2 Media Evaluation. For my A2, I decided to complete the print brief as I want to go on to do a journalism degree next year, and I thought creating a magazine along with the accompanying billboard and website would be the best way to prepare for this degree. In order to understand more about conventions of real media products, I researched a range of products in thorough detail to give me a better understanding on what an audience expects to see from a regional magazine product and accompanying billboard and website. After completing my initial research into existing regional magazines like Cornwall Today, Coast and Cornish Living, I conducted primary audience research to find out who my audience would be and what they would want from a regional magazine. I found that my primary target audience would be Cornish males and females aged 30 to 45 in social grades A to C1, with a secondary audience of members outside of this age range with an interest in my featured region. This meant that for the duration of the practical work I needed to ensure that I followed genre conventions of existing traditional Cornish magazines, like those I looked at in my initial research, as these audiences are a typical demographic found in regional magazines. After conducting my initial research into my audience demographic, I did more detailed analysis of existing regional magazines, their websites and any promotional billboards and adverts they may have distributed. Doing this additional research really helped me learn about what the typical genre conventions for regional magazines were. As I started to plan my creative ideas, I was careful to make sure my ideas followed these conventions carefully to represent the genre effectively, as well as appeal to both my primary and secondary target audience. I followed certain conventions in terms of imagery, typography and layout. In short, as you can see, my media products do not typically challenge conventions, but I tried to be more creative than competitors for using more unique and original imagery fitting for the autumn season, especially with my images for the haunted stories. Another way it could be argued that my media product breaks typical genre conventions in comparison to other regional magazines is that instead of just featuring an image of a particular regional landscape without any model present on the cover, I've included a female model on my front cover to demonstrate my haunted story theme that fits the fact that the magazine is an October edition. In other regional magazines I've researched, they only ever feature landscapes. Whilst I've used a female model in my work, she does not fully support Laura Mulvey's 1975 male gaze theory, which argues that females are sexualised and portrayed as objects of desire for men. This is because I wanted my model to present a supernatural appearance to link in with my horror theme, and didn't consider including sexualisation in my work, as this doesn't relate to the genre. However, as she is young, thin and attractive, some males still may find her an object of desire, meaning I have not fully disrupted Mulvey's theory with my choice of model. Furthermore, as my model is young, it could mean that this image attracts a younger secondary target audience. My mise-en-scene, namely Gothic setting and lighting, could also work for a younger target audience, as it's possible to argue this supports Stanley Hall's 1904 theory of the most common mood for teenagers as a state of depression, as dark images of death link into this. However, the image still fits traditional regional conventions in terms of the background, as it's a famous local National Trust property the primary target will recognise. This, along with my contents page, double-page spread, website and billboard imagery that include long shots, medium shots and close-ups of surfers in the water at Newquay, images of a local author and landscapes that inspired our book, along with general lifestyle shots from around the local area, portray the content of my magazine in a positive way to appeal to the audience and follow genre conventions. This also supports the regional identity theory created by Higson in 1998, where he stated that identity is generally understood to be the shared identity of naturalised inhabitants, so my target audience will recognise these stereotypical images of Cornish scenes, people and places. I think my typography, lexis and use of semantic fields will also follow expected regional magazine conventions to represent my audience, because I've kept my articles about expected top places to visit, famous local authors, haunted Cornish locations, and have used a classic feature writing style that's inviting yet informal enough to be taken seriously by an older audience. Also, through calling my magazine Cornish Life, I follow conventions by mentioning the region in the title, and by including the word that connotes this is also a lifestyle genre magazine. This masthead fits Higson's theory as it links to regional identity. I also follow conventions relating to layout on all my products by having stereotypical images of Cornwall dominate the space and through the careful placement of traditional text. As I base my colour palette on my images, it's arguably the case that the colour palette is darker than some regional magazines I researched, but this fits the Halloween issue theme I wanted to achieve, so I think breaking this convention works in this context. Also, I have not completely broken conventions as the colours still follow a 3-colour rule drawn on the natural Cornish scenes I photographed. I've also emphasised a connection to the regional theme through making some of my text see-through, so you can see aspects of my Cornish imagery behind. This also works for the haunted theme as it connotes ghostly text. Across all my products, I tried to follow genre conventions by creating a house style throughout my media products, which can be evidenced by my consistent use of the same typography and organised layout. With my ancillary tasks, I tried to continue with this house style for my billboard and website by using a similar style of regional landscape photography and typography. Looking at them now, I think they are effective together and definitely look like they belong to the same Halloween issue of the magazine. In other words, in answer to the question concerning how effective the combination of main and ancillary tasks is, I think I've successfully attempted to establish a house style throughout my media products by using similar themes in terms of colour, typography and imagery. This gave my media products high production values, therefore appealing to the audience. I don't think I would have got any of this right if I had not listened to my audience feedback. The first thing I learned during the course of analysing my first survey results was who my audience demographic would be in terms of age, gender, social grade and interests. Throughout my audience feedback, I developed a better understanding on the expectations of my work at every stage of production, and I made sure I acted on their needs regarding all media language choices, such as what images to take, what colours to use and what typography would work best to appeal to the audience. I also let my audience pick their preference in terms of colour palette and magazine name. As a result of this, I have also gained further knowledge on what conventions of regional magazines actually appeal to a real target audience. I then looked at an audience theory created by Bloomer and Katz in order to understand more about why an audience may want to read my magazine. I then found out my magazine would be read by an audience for entertainment and informative purposes, therefore ensuring that my content needed to suit these needs. Because of this, I created cover lines such as Walk Dartmoor and Explore Lanhydrock to follow genre conventions as well as appeal to the audience. I also made sure I only included locations in or very near Cornwall to create the right regional appeal and follow conventions. After I finished my work, I got final feedback from a focus group. I received lots of positive comments including there's a good colour palette, there is a strong house style, I really like the images, the image of the floating girl is captivating, how did you do it? I did improve my work this year through researching conventions and following audience feedback. I also improved because I researched and practiced how to use various different media technologies depending on what is best appropriate for the content I'm working on at that time. I have used a range of different media platforms this year to document and present my work, which has helped to develop my skills and understanding on these platforms. For example, I've used Blogger throughout the entirety of my work to document my planning, research and exhibition stages. I also used Word when writing my articles to ensure I had access to a spell checker, therefore meaning that my spelling could be altered if it was incorrect. This ensured I was following conventions whilst giving my media products further professionalism. I also used SurveyMonkey in order for me to gain an audience demographic whilst finding out about the types of things that would appeal to them most in my work. All of these platforms were easy to use compared to platforms such as Photoshop, After Effects and Dreamweaver that I had to use to construct and develop my main product and ancillary text once I had captured my images using the 5D SLR and 150mm lens. Capturing high quality landscape and portraits outside with landscape backdrops was more difficult than I expected. Last year I did studio shoots for my music magazine, and though I had reached a competent stage in my photography, but when I started doing outdoor shoots this year, I realised shooting outside was as difficult, if not yet more difficult, than shooting in a studio because it was harder to control the lighting and you couldn't predict the weather, which meant it was harder to complete shoots. It took more attempts at shoots this year than last year, as the light just wasn't right for the shoots I wanted on a number of occasions. What I enjoyed most on my shoots was the surrealist and pumpkin shoots I did for the Halloween Ghost feature story, as I got to be really creative with mist and scene on both these shoots and completed some interesting research to find out how to get the best effects. Once I had all my images, I then had to use the platforms Photoshop and InDesign to complete my print work, and Dreamweaver to build my website. Using Photoshop and InDesign throughout various stages of my work has allowed me to develop my knowledge on various tools and techniques that I'd started to learn last year. I enjoyed the Photoshop work more this year as I felt more confident using the program, and also got to learn how to do new things like cut out aspects of an image, use the magic wand tool and use the clone tool to achieve the surrealist ghost effects in my haunted Cornwall images. I also got to practice altering levels and adding filter layers to get the right colours for my Halloween theme. I then used the program InDesign as a contribution to the layout of my media products. This was easier to use this year as I had already a slight understanding from last year on how to use this technology to add text, move images and do layouts. I then got to continue developing my knowledge on new technology through learning how to use Dreamweaver, a program I had no previous knowledge of. This was the hardest bit of the practical course this year, and it took a long time to learn how to do basic coding, add images, add text and link pages. This is probably the program I need the most practice on, and the area of my work that I could have improved with more time due to this program being new to me. I used iMovie to edit my evaluation, which was straightforward as I already knew how to add clips, add images and create a blue screen effect after doing my evaluation last year. Finally, I had to distribute my products, and I used Dataflame to host my website, YouTube to upload my evaluation and Blogger to display all my final finished products through adding my print work and embedding my website and evaluation. This was easy to achieve as I had been continuously using this technology throughout the course. Overall, in terms of using technology this year, I felt more confident than last year as I already had a slight understanding on how these technology platforms can be used. I'm glad I picked the print brief because repeatedly reusing these programs developed my understanding, and I now feel more confident using them when developing my work, which, and as I hope would be the case when choosing the print brief, I now feel much better prepared for me to start my journalism degree in September.